What's going on? This is Joseph R. Wheeler III, the artist, the founder, and the president of the ONYXCON Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit arts and creative lifestyle organization that encourages you to live your best creative life. And we do mean your absolute best life, creatively especially. We want you to think outside the box. You don't have to be an artist, but from an artist, we're going to show you the way. We're going to show you the way. If you want to find that kind of glory in your time. All right? That's what we do here. That's what we do here. It is so warm for October. It's insanely warm for October. It's 73, but it feels a little more like 80 if you're not, you know, directly in the sun. I mean, if you're standing in the sun, you're going to feel it more. But I'm saying if the breeze ain't blowing on you, yeah, you wouldn't even know it was October. It will get cool later on. That's just how it does in the ATL areas these days. You know what I'm saying? But wanted to talk to y'all as I'm out here working as usual. And they say not to speak on politics and things, and especially as a nonprofit. Uh, I can personally speak from any perspective I want to as an individual, but and speaking for my organization, I can't promote or I can't lobby and promote. I can't push a certain candidate and all that type of thing. But with the presidential candidacy coming up, I'm gonna say this before I get started. I'm gonna say as I always say, views and opinions expressed by yours truly do not necessarily reflect those of ONYXCON's affiliates, associates, sponsors, etc., etc., etc. Okay, but I think it's really funny that people say what they say about you should never talk about politics, and I agree with that philosophy. I mean, general conversation with complete strangers, you know, um, it's best to avoid that. It's best to avoid that. Hold on, y'all. Let me see something. All right, all right. So yeah, as I was saying, I mean, in general company and in direct company, I agree with that completely. I think in online forums and social media and everything, if you're gonna speak on it, speak on it. I mean, people speak on anything and everything. So I think it's the perfect imperfect place. I'll say that again. It's the perfect imperfect place to pretty much talk about anything. But there are still rules, there are still laws, there are still guidelines. YouTube has its own guidelines, rules, and everything, as it should, because if it weren't for that, it would be a hot, absolute mess with what goes on here, and not just here, but on Instagram or any of these platforms. So there has to be rules because people just, unfortunately, depending on their upbringing, their mental health, etc., they don't govern themselves well, so they do all kind of stuff. That's why we have such an issue with trolling online and cyberbullying and all of that. You know what I'm saying? I never liked that phrase. I understand it. I know it's real, but I'm just like coming from a time when there was real bullies. It's like, man, a fool online is the easiest to be. I mean, as long as they don't do away with the block button, it's whatever. As long as you got a block button, I could care less. I could care less, and that's for their safety. That's for their safety because nobody has to tolerate that kind of nonsense. But bottom line is, I'm not going to dwell on this topic too long because, like I say, it's not the best conversation. But I do feel like as important and as serious as this particular election, and they say this every time there's an election. Everybody always says, "Oh, the election of our lifetime is so important." Let me say this. That has been said all my life. I've been looking at people say that all my life, and I've been voting as long as I could vote. All right, and I've already voted. I did my early vote. Okay, I did my early vote for her. Yeah, proudly so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do what you will with that. Like I said, I'm speaking for myself, for myself. And but I've been voting as long as I could. And what really frustrates me is like, in previous years, it was never not true that every time you vote, it's not important. Every time you vote, it's important. Every time. Every time. I mean, the ones that I hate to miss are the local stuff. I always easily remember. I mean, they put so much hype on the presidential, like it's the biggest one, and then you got your local stuff like governor and all that, which is kind of second biggest. But a lot of people sleep on that one. They always sleep on that one. They always sleep on the local thing. They always sleep on those laws that get brought up every single time you go. Just about every single time I voted, and this was no different. There's always laws that they put on the ballot, and some people are so sleep to that. They just think it's all about the candidates, and if they don't like the candidates or don't like a candidate or whatever, they just not participating. Some people that talk that talk, and it's like, do you understand? Literally, not figuratively, not made up, not conspiracy theory or anything. Literally, laws that will directly affect you in your state are always on the ballot every single time. So, my favorite word, one of my many favorite words, it would behoove you to go vote. It would behoove you to always vote if you can, always, as an adult human being in this country, any country, but speaking for the one I live in, America, you must vote. Why? Because your vote is just like when you spend money. I say this all the time. It's all connected. The money. It is a capitalist country. Everything's tied to money. When you vote, you're telling the system, this is the way my money's going to flow. This is what I stand by. This is what I want to see done with my money. This is how I'm going to spend my money as a consumer. This is the respect I want and deserve and demand as a consumer. That's what you're telling them every time you vote. So it would be in tandem with when I do these talks, when I go live, when I put my desire to be a full-time YouTuber, a full-time artist. Before even saying YouTube, I'm just an artist, period. You know what I'm saying? In every sense of the word. I draw, I paint, I sculpt, photography, all that's part of my history. Some of these things I don't do like I used to do them, but I still got the skills. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a producer. I do all these different things. I was just on a film set the last 2 days for a major, when I say major, really, really big show that's coming up. And that has already had multiple seasons, so it's doing pretty well, the show. And it's for a major network and all that good stuff. So, when I speak from the perspective of an artist, and I speak from the perspective of everything that I've built that is ONYXCON, my greatest desire is to just continue to do that and only have the personal obligation of doing that as my livelihood. As they say, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. It never quite feels like work, even though I'm still working when I go live and do these talks with y'all, because I'm sharing my perspectives, and it makes the work that is kind of like work that I don't want to have to do seem less disingenuous. I wasn't born to be a courier. I didn't want to be a courier, but I got no shame in being a courier either. I do it with pride. You know what I'm saying? I go out here and I do my jobs. It ain't no big deal. It can be a big deal, but I'm saying, because there's safety involved. There's a whole lot of things involved, and that's the reason why I want to speak on the stuff I'm talking about, and why I say politics is not just a word. It's not an optional category in everyday life that you either participate or you don't. Whether you participate or not in the voting process, whether you pay attention to what's going on with candidates and what certain ruling governmental factions have influence over your everyday way of being able to do whatever you do, whether you participate or not, it affects you. That's just the reality. Like, nobody, and I do mean nobody, because I love to hear people say that goofy phrase. I understand the intention and the feeling behind the phrase, but when people say I'm off the grid, there's no such thing. What are you talking about? The whole earth is. You ever looked at Google, not just Google Maps, but Google Earth, the app, Google Earth? That app is a literal scan of the entire Earth, the entire planet. Okay? The only thing on there I've ever come across, every now and then you'll get an area that's so remote, okay, that if you were there, you really are off the grid. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna have no phone signal, Whatever happens to you just happens. It's just you and the rest of nature. But even with that said, there are coordinates that could be used to at least say, well, off the grid Gary, I'm making up a name to make my joke, but it's a serious point. Off the grid Gary went to the middle of the Amazon, okay, for an adventure trip and has not been seen since. But we know that his flight from whatever place in the U.S., because, you know, even in the U.S., let's say off the grid Gary lives in, you know, some very rural area in America where there's not a lot of phone signal, whatever else, but we all know where his address is. The government knows where your address is. They know where your place of if you can buy a plane ticket, if you're going through Homeland Security, if you're doing any of that, all right. If you have any type of cell phone, because you got people out here. They think because they're a hacker or some other stuff. Well, I gotta. There's no such thing as a criminal that's off the grid. You're just allowed to do a little bit of your mess until they get fed up enough, or until they get enough intel on you to come get you. How many movies got to come out to show that some of the most brilliant mastermind criminals that ever existed, that always thought they were bigger and better than the law, didn't understand? Look, the law itself thinks a lot like the legal system has people in it that either used to be criminals or love to study criminals to the point where they can figure out anything these people are doing. So there's nothing that just happens and gets away. Some stuff, it's just allowed long enough for us to crack down on it when we get enough for it to make sense. We get enough evidence for whoever's bottom line, whatever faction, whatever situation. All right, it's time to go clean that up. And I don't want to go too far off on that and miss my other point that I wanted to make about people who think they're so far off the grid that when it comes to voting and things like that, they don't participate because they don't think it affects them. There is not a place, I'll say again, on this planet that some governmental faction or factions, because sometimes depending on how remote or unique the situation of the land or whatever, somebody has some kind of control over, and I will say this. Now, I am as a earthly type of guy myself, I do feel that there's no such thing as human dominion over everything. None of that. Right. I don't believe in that. But I do, as I'm speaking to this technological device, all of that can be. I'm under no illusions about that. I also know that I have a personal right to defend myself if I ever felt harm. And I'm not even promoting violence or saying that I'm wanting anything crazy to happen. No, I don't ever want nobody to try to test my abilities, and I don't want to have to show nobody that I will defend myself. I don't want to show nobody that side of me. That ain't to be shown. That is not to be just bragged about and whatever else, you know what I'm saying? But I don't pretend that my existence and what I'm using to share my existence through these platforms doesn't make me vulnerable to a whole bunch of eyes and a whole bunch of ears and all kind of perspectives. Difference is, I live by the code of a famous line from the movie After Earth. I love this line. I live by it. Because I had this philosophy before I heard the line, and the line just put it in perspective where I keep saying it in a real nice, neat way. But Will Smith's character in the movie said, danger is real. Fear is a choice. Danger is real, but fear is a choice. So I don't fear anything, especially, I don't fear. It's not about fear. It's about respect for danger. Somebody, something, they're dangerous. I respect that. That's why I'm saying about being on the grid. Everybody's on the grid, so you got to respect the fact you're on the grid and that there's a way to get at you, Now, at the same time, you got a right to defend yourself. So if you don't live in fear, you'll do what's necessary to stay alive. Period. And part of that, in my opinion, beside all of the macho side of it and everything, and I only said all that because I know a lot of people online love to talk that up, that one side of things. They don't use their brain, they only use their brawn. But I'm saying there are situations where it has nothing to do with your brawn. All right, safety first. We back up in this thing. All right. So what I was saying, so aside from all the bravado and the self-entitlement that some people have of thinking that they are untouchable and completely one man or one woman army and all this whole kind of mentality. You know, I got a lot of growl in me from just being American, being born in this country and having to endure so much crazy stuff or whatever. So that type of chip on the shoulder is pretty common in most of American culture. But the one thing about it, like I say, the older you get, the smarter, the more realistic, the more life you live, if you're paying attention, if you're being honest with yourself, and if you're a traveler. Y'all know I love to travel. If you've been following this channel, you know that. You know that's a big part of our content here. We travel. I do vlogs. And one of the greatest things I got from travel too, to prove my point about nobody being off the grid also, and all this fear-based, I'm gonna call it a fear-based economy, quite frankly. America is a fear-based economy. It's not just capitalist, it's a fear-based economy. What do I mean by that? I'm saying, if you can create fear in anybody in this country, in the world, but especially how I see it working in America, you can control a lot of things about how they live, what they're gonna do, how they're gonna spend, who they're gonna spend with, who they're gonna trust, what they don't trust, what their values are, all of that stuff, you know? And it ties in real heavy with religion. I'm not religious, okay? So if you wanna leave now, because, oh, I don't listen to anybody who's not religious, then you might wanna jump off the ship right the hell now, because I'm telling you right, I'm not religious. But I got a lot of friends and family who are. So I respect, again, it's about respect. I respect the power that religion has over so many people. It definitely is more dominant than the amount of people who are not religious or who would openly claim to be not religious. That's the other point. A lot of people say they're religious, but they ain't really religious. They just know that, oh, I get brownie points if I say this. Oh, okay. I get to join the club if I say this. I get more money if I say this. People trust me more if I see this, because it's a fear-based economy. And I know they're afraid, so I don't want to be afraid of me. So, you know, if I tell them I'm a Christian, if I'm in the right country, if I'm in Malaysia and I'm Muslim, if I'm wherever you are in the world, whatever the most dominant religion is, if you say that you're that, yeah, you instantly are trusted. It's like people, not everybody, but the majority will generally trust you because, okay, all right, we got that in common. You know, and I see it all the time, been seeing it all my life. Like, you could be talking to somebody you just met and they want to go telling you about how they love something related to God and being a Christian, and they go to this church and that church and whatever. And they'll be like, and they're looking at you, waiting to say something similar, like, aren't you going to tell me what church you go to? It's like, no, because I don't know what you want. That ain't, you know. And I just always nod respect. I give respect to the power I know that holds over their mind and in their hearts and in their lifestyle and what they believe. So I don't want to challenge that, and I don't know you. You know, we're not going to go there. We haven't made enough rapport for me to be analytical and all that with them. So, you know, I just leave that alone. You know what I'm saying? And so you know, and like I said, there's a difference with talking to someone directly as an individual versus, it's funny about social media, you talking to the world. You stepping on a million toes all at the same time, but they got a right to either keep watching or leave. So it's okay. It's a lot different than being right in front of somebody and they start frustrating you and you got your emotions all in it. So some people don't know how to back away or just leave that. They want to get into arguments. So that's why they say it's best to avoid religion and politics and all these things. But the other reason why they say to avoid those topics, you know, and I say this is an old phrase. People have been saying this, man, this might be ancient. I don't know when it officially started, but I know I've been hearing it all my life. From my grandparents to my parents, to aunts, uncles, everybody older than me told me and taught me, avoid conversations about religion, about politics, and hell, you can add in sports. But what's funny about all three of those things, they're the three things people most want to know about you when they meet a person. And then that helps them, if they're simple like that, if they're most people where their whole life is revolving around those simple things. And they're not simple to them, but I'm saying it's simple in a way because If that's literally like everything got to fit into those categories, or you can't talk to and you can't meet nobody new, you can't deal with nothing new. Yeah, I gotta make sure their politics is just like mine. I gotta make sure their religion is just like mine, and I gotta make sure they like some of the teams I like in sports or whatever. Damn, that's wow. And this isn't even true to the same degree from my experience when you travel again in the world. It's somewhat true. Like, for instance, soccer is so big outside of America, and it's becoming bigger in America, but it's so big outside of America. Football. Okay, football could get you in a damn fight, with folks saying the wrong team and craziness. I mean, if you ever seen them videos of them riots at soccer games, or just how rowdy the fans are with each other, they do a lot of dangerous, crazy stuff. You think an American game is crazy for football or something? That's, I don't. This is, even this is metaphor. This moment I'm doing right now is like metaphor for that whole off the grid fear economy concept. It's like, for anybody who thinks they are, when I say off the grid today, I'm not just talking about the literal sense of it. I'm talking about people who really think that voting it doesn't matter, and the governments are going to do whatever they want to do, and la 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 la. Now, in the history of governments, I understand I totally understand the mentality and where that comes from. The fear that has been true and could be true again. They're gonna do whatever they want to do, so what does it matter how I vote? But here's the part. What I've come to realize, and always knew, but especially it becomes clearer and clearer, is that, like I was saying earlier, voting is like spending money itself. It's how you're telling everybody in those positions of control, and again, I mentioned that there's laws that come up on every ballot that so many people sit at home and don't vote, and then when they have to deal with the effects of that law, they're like, when did they approve this? They didn't tell us nothing. Yes, yeah, actually they did. They did it the way they do it. It's still government. They don't. They just tell you to vote. Now you vote or not, that's on you. But when the law gets yayed or nayed, or people hack it and do all kind of other crazy stuff, okay, illegal election processes like certain candidates that we are not going back to, okay, when stuff like that happens and people can't understand, well, why is this like this, and how did it get like this overnight? Sometimes it can be stuff that pops up overnight, and it's one of those quick votes in Congress or the Senate, House of Representatives or the Senate, and most people, just like I say, the ones who don't vote are the main reason why this stuff can happen, because if everybody went out and at least voiced their direct opinion on it, they know the government doesn't want to make moves that are not going to help the organizations. Listen to what I'm saying. Views and opinions expressed by yours truly do not necessarily reflect those of honest, conscious feelings associated, blah, blah, blah. But everything I'm saying is just a fact. You can just look it up. This ain't even conspiracy theory. I don't talk in conspiracy theories. If I say anything that might be leaning that way, like I say again, look it up. This is civics 101. If anybody actually finished high school, and if they still have civics, because they took so much stuff out of schools in certain districts, it's civics 101, If you're participating in the electoral process and you're voting on the laws and everything, you at least get awareness of what's next, of what's trying to get pushed against you, of whatever's going. You get at least you get a warning shot, so to speak, or you can at least put people in place who represent your thoughts on certain issues, because that's all a candidate is. Their thoughts on a certain issue is you're trying to find the one who's closest to the way you feel about most things. Nobody, is any one person in your entire life, in your family, your friend circle, whoever, absolutely 1000% always agreeing with you, always on the same page. Hell no. Same thing for politicians. But when somebody is absolutely acting a belligerent fool, spewing racist stuff, having racist rallies, these aren't even political rallies at this point. That mess that was said about Puerto Rico is an absolute atrocity. And as someone who I feel like an honorary Latino, because I have Latin friends, I have a connection to many culturas, and I appreciate the people in these places. I mean, Puerto Rico was somewhere I wanted to go this year, and I ended up going to see my other mi gente, you know what I'm saying? I went to see República Dominicana, no regrets, but my original plan was to try to see there and to Puerto Rico. So, I mean, it even hit more personal in the fact wanted to go this year. A big ass mound of trash island that floats around the earth. That is something that is in existence. But for this jackass comedian at this racist rally, because all it was like a hate rally, y'all. I ain't never seen no shit like this in years. It's actually it's Bizarro World. If you're a comic book head and you know DC Comics, this is Bizarro World, or at least that part of their existence is Bizarro World. The rest of us over here in this beautiful day I'm driving through right now, it's a beautiful day. It's fall. Squirrels still running. Leaves still changing colors. People, oh man, it's a beautiful area. The whole world ain't went to hell, but let these goofies play off these fears. They literally spewing. If I were straight up Puerto Rican, there's no way in the hell me and any of my Boricuas would be voting towards anybody who would disrespect our nation. And it is technically, forever and a day, our part of our nation. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. So you're up here calling a part of the U.S. trash. Like this jackass literally called a part of the country trash. But you're talking politics trying to get votes from everybody. Man. And there's still, I'll never forget years ago on a dating app, I came across a real fine Puerto Rican lady. And I started flirting with her and she liked me back. She responded to my first message. And we were doing good in the first few sentences or whatever. So I decided to get deep and ask her, I think it was close to a time when we had to vote on something. So I kind of said, well, let's get the elephant out the room. Do you vote? And if you do, how you feeling? And she started talking this down red cap stuff with little silly slogans on it. Yeah, she started talking that stuff. I said, you got to be out of your, I can't believe what I'm hearing right now. I can't believe this woman that said all this, like, how could you, it was one of the moments where it's like, how can you be this smart but then that dumb at the same time? Because she was into so many different things that made sense up until that point. And then when I hit that note, it all went to hell real quick. So I gave her a couple of sentences back like, yo, I'm definitely not feeling that whatsoever. And I wonder how you explain that to yourself. And she went into a whole bunch of nonsense that sounded so goofy. And I'm like, wow, this is really a breed of mentality. Like, I had heard about this, but I didn't, it's like I hadn't encountered it until I had that situation directly, so to speak. You see it on the news, you see, people on the street doing interviews, stuff like that. But to encounter it directly, that level of insanity, that Kanye West level of lunacy, I said, man, this is, wow, man. It's really happening to people. Like, I always say with Kanye, I know what we all, if you paid attention to his life, you know what happened. After he lost his mom, we all feel like he just lost his mind. So we sympathize for that, but at the same time, the actions can't be sympathized for when you're doing stuff that's just absolutely insane. Speak of others, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, shame on you. What the hell, man? Y'all are legends in wrestling, and now I don't even want to see you. I don't even want to see them, y'all. Yeah. When I saw that, Undertaker proudly interviewing this dude, and then turn around and see Hulk Hogan at the hate rally, I'm like, man, this. But I'm not gonna dwell on the ones who fall off. I'm actually glad they show they true colors, what they really about. I love it. I love to know who's on what side of history. It's very important. It's so important to really know where people's heads are at. And you start seeing how, in the case of, especially with certain black legends and celebrities and whatnot who've turned that way, I'm just like, you know what? Some of them know no surprise. I always say anybody who used to deal crack, you know what this was doing to your communities. And there's like two types of rappers that survived that era. There's the ones who have remorse and shame for what they did, and there's the ones who they say, they're quick to, in a very kind of lighthearted way say, yeah, it was wrong, but they still talk about it like, man, it was some good times. I was so rich. Like, I was making so much. Like, they may have, some of them was kingpins and made more money doing that than they did in rap. They just decided to deal with rap because they knew they were about to go to jail. So he was like, let me legalize my stuff. Let me clean this dirty money. Let me can't wash the sins away. I ain't religious, but that's how they talk. They all got on crosses and they all talking about Christianity, but they proud of their era of dealing crack and stuff. It's like, see, that's that psychotic, man. That's that psychotic, ladies and gentlemen. And some of us who've lived long enough, we've known people like this, and you know how they can be. And then so like when they showed it, yeah, they could vote towards and support somebody who literally is all about money and gives a damn about anything else. And even though it's not just as simple as classism, they try to justify it to themselves, well, it's just a matter of classism. I'm not y'all, I'm not broke like y'all, so I don't care about y'all bottom line. I don't care if y'all survive. I don't care if the so-called, they don't care if their the actual community survives, where they actually care. I'm just so happy I voted early. I'm just so happy that I voted early. That's the only thing that gives me peace in hearing the daily news and seeing the nonsense that's out here, is to know, well, I did my part.